This is Jade Banks from the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program at Mind Builders Creative Arts Center in the Bronx. And we are just delighted and thrilled to be a part of the Will to Adorn Youth Access webinar conference. I am sitting here with two interns from the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program, Mr. Edmund Asante, who's been with us for almost 7 years, and Ms. Chanel Christopher, who's been with us for 2 years. I'm also sitting here with the founder and executive director of Mind Builders, Ms. Madaha Kinsey Lamb, and our host for the afternoon, Tom Van Buren of Westchester Arts, or the Westchester Arts Council. So we really appreciate this opportunity. We have been collaborating with the Will to Adorn project since the fall of 2009. The Will to Adorn, of course, curated by Dr. Diana Baird and Jai. Shout out to Sally Vanderwater, project coordinator. The Will to Adorn project, as well as Style in Motion, explores diversity in African American communities through the lens of dress and adornment. The young people of the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program don't really connect with the title, The Will to Adorn. They wanted something more youth-oriented. So every summer, they named the program for themselves. So last summer, they decided to call the program Style in Motion, which, like the Will to Adorn program, explores diversity in African American communities through the lens of dress and adornment. Style in Motion. Why do we style the way we do in communities of African descent? Why do we style the way we do in communities of African descent? Before I answer that question in this presentation, you need to know who we are. Again, we are interns of the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program at Mind Builders Creative Arts Center. And our backgrounds include the countries you see on the left. You have about 20 countries represented within our participant body of the Community Folk Culture Program. These are young people ranging in ages from 13 to 21. And then because they get older and don't want to leave the program, we've had to create program assistant positions. We now have folks who are affiliated with the program who are almost 30 years old. What we do is we study folklore, and intern Edmund Asante is going to explain what folklore is.
Well, folklore is defined as a combination of two words. Folk, which means people, and lore, which means knowledge. Folk, people, lore, knowledge. Folklore is a special knowledge of the people that is passed down from generation to generation, or that holds groups or communities together.
Absolutely. And Dr. Beverly J. Robinson came up with that equation. Dr. Beverly J. Robinson was a master folk lorist who was also a theater historian and professor at UCLA in California. She came up with this wonderful equation. Folklore equals people plus knowledge, which makes it very easy to understand what it is. There are 4 genres. You have oral tradition and performance, which includes rapping, Baptist church sermons, speaking patois, Creole, things that are audible, things that are related to language, things that are related to performance. And then the Will to Adorn program is part of genre number 2, which is material culture, things that you can make and do with your hands, such as braiding and tailoring, hat making, and tattooing. Another way to express folklore is through foodways. And this, of course, is the favorite of the young people because they get to taste foods from around the world specific to their culture, such as fried chicken, ginger beer, pastelitos, fufu, gumbo. And the 4th is festivals, rituals, and celebrations, which include examples like quinceañera, christening, carnivals, bar mitzvahs, etc. Why is it important that we document our cultures? Why? so that the information is correct. Later on in this presentation, we are going to give you two URLs. One, which shows a video on YouTube of when the Harlem Shake went viral and the technique was wrong, totally incorrect. The second bears the correct version of the Harlem Shake. And it's important that we document our own cultures from an insider view because the information will remain correct. In 10, 15 years, when someone Googles the Harlem Shake, the incorrect viral video will show up in the search engine more so than the correct version. And that is why it is important for us to document our own cultures. The Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program is a year-round paid teen internship program. Our year begins in the summer, the fiscal year, 5 weeks, 75 hours during those 5 weeks that the participants attend from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the summertime. In the fall through the spring, we run November until May, 2 days per week, 2 hours a day, which totals about an additional 90 days. An additional 90 hours. We do 3 things in the Dr. Beverly J. Robinson Community Folk Culture Program. Edmund's going to tell you what it is that we do.
Well, firstly, we identify traditions, folk artists, and tradition bearers in their families, communities, neighborhoods, boroughs, and city. After that, we document folk artists and tradition bearers in on-site and off-site interviews. And finally, we present these folk artists and tradition bearers back to our community. So it's identify, document, present every single time.
Thank you, Edmund. Exactly. We identify, document, and present folk artists and their traditions. Folk artists and traditions from the community, and we present them back to the community. In this instance, for the Will to Adorn program / Style in Motion, we're identifying and documenting the tradition of style and the tradition bearers or folk artists who are the style exemplars and artisans of style. Again, the tradition is style, and the style exemplars and artisans of style are the folk artists. Chanel, why don't you explain what style exemplars, and artisans of style are?
Okay, style is how we put ourselves together from head to toe. A style exemplar is one who is well-dressed and well put together, also known as a dress artist. And an artisan of style is a person who creates the style options for exemplars.
Exactly. Chanel herself is an artisan of style. She is a fashion designer that we unearthed in the Community Folk Culture Program at Mind Builders. Chanel joined us as an intern, and she soon began to sew the dance and theater outfits for our sister companies within Mind Builders, so we're glad to have found her folkloristically. Okay, one of the easiest ways for us to identify style and artisans of style and style exemplars is in the internship application itself. If you look on your left-hand side, we ask a question of the interns. Photocopy a photograph of a well-dressed or fashionable person, 30 years or older, that shows him or her being well-dressed in his or her teens. Well, that question does a number of things. Number one, it connects the teenagers of today to the teenagers of the previous generation, so that's an intergenerational connection. Number two, you're documenting style. Number three, you're documenting a style exemplar, all in that one question. Now, if you look over part two, third bullet point, the application asks the applicant to provide the name, address, telephone number, email address, and website of 2 artists or artisans. So you potentially, from the applications, if you have 20 applicants, you potentially are identifying 20 separate styles, 20 separate style exemplars, and 40 possible artisans just from the application process, which gives you a leg up on the identification area of this program. Identify. We've identified hip-hop as a style and style exemplars from the application and also from street research that we've done, which we'll touch on a little bit later. So we've identified hip-hop as a style. We've also identified the Afrocentric style and style exemplars. Our second part is we document. Here you have an on-site interview with one of our style exemplars who joined us in the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Evan Asante is going to tell you about her.
We were honored to be able to speak to Kanaya Schultz, who was a hip-hop B-girl and style exemplar. She is a hip-hop historian and lifelong Harlem resident. She allowed the community folk culture program to interview her and to archive a number of her personal photos because she is also a photographer, and that includes shots with hip-hop pioneers.
And who are some of the hip-hop pioneers you see with Kanaya, Chanel?
Well, in the picture at the bottom left, Kanaya is with hip-hop pioneer African Bambaataa, founder of the Zulu Nation. In the middle, Kanaya is with the father of hip-hop, Kool Herc. And in the bottom right, Kanaya stands with hip-hop pioneer KRS-One.
And Kanaya was referred to me by community activist Katwi Heru when he heard me speaking about the project. He said I had to meet Kanaya Schultz because she's a walking hip-hop history book, and Kanaya is the quintessential B-girl. She was born and raised and still lives on 125th Street in Harlem. Kanaya carries a catalog of hip-hop songs in her head that as soon as they're played, she can tell you exactly where she was and what she was wearing when the song first dropped. A walking hip-hop historian. We documented in an off-site interview Denny Moe from Denny Moe's Barbershop. Chanel is going to tell you a little bit about Mr. Denny Moe.
The interns interviewed an artisan of style, master barber Denny Moe Mitchell, and he is also the owner of Denny Moe's Superstar Barbershop in a world-famous neighborhood of Harlem, New York. In the right-hand picture, Denny Moe demonstrates his mastery on Edmund Asante, then a fourth-year intern of the Folklore Community Program.
Denny Moe has been around since we connected with the Will to Adorn program. Denny Moe was also one of the artisans of style that we were privileged to present at the 2013 Smithsonian Folklife Festival. And I'm going to give a shout out to Denny Moe, who 2 weeks ago received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Soul Train for his mastery in barbering. Denny Moe is the person who created the iconic Gumby hairstyle of Bobby Brown by accident. Denny was cutting Bobby Brown's hair while Bobby Brown was speaking on the telephone. He only cut half of it. And Bobby Brown stood up and saw it in the mirror and said, Dennis, I like it. Just clean it up and let's leave it crooked. And that is how Bobby Brown ended up with his iconic Gumby hairstyle. I'm also giving a shout out to Denny Moe because last week his barbershop was used as the venue for John Quinones' TV show. What was it called? What Would You Do? On Dateline. So Denny Moe is very much the community member. Absolutely. Another way that we document is through field research and street research. This one is at a special event. We were able to contract a workshop from the Hip Hop Culture Center in Harlem. Our interns went there during the summer for a workshop and wrote a rap song, and the tagline for the rap song was, "Why you want me see you in your drawers, pause." And it was about sagging and why young people sag and their particular opinions about it. Again, the tagline is, "Why you want me to see you in your drawers, pause." It's not, "Why do you want me to see you in your drawers, pause." It's too wordy for hip-hop. Hip-hop has its own culture. "Why you want me to see you in your drawers, pause." We also documented the World Basketball Tournament at the Rucker basketball courts. The Rucker is the venue for the world's greatest street ball game. Everybody who's anybody in basketball shows up at the Rucker during the few days that they have in the summer for the tournament. If you look at the top left-hand corner, that's a shot of the group of the young people who came out at 8 o'clock in the morning to stand in line for the Rucker. On the right-hand side, you'll see we have the opportunity to document Kobe Bryant in his Nike gear, which is a line that he helped develop. And in the bottom, you see interns Gerald Bryan and Edmund Sante interviewing hip-hop pioneer Fab Five Freddy of Yo MTV Raps. Fab Five Freddy is known for his signature fedora. He sort of bridges the jazz generation and the hip-hop generation because his father is a master jazz artist, very well known from Harlem. And of course, we documented the special event, the 2013 Smithsonian Folklife Festival. You'll see pictured in the top right-hand corner in her regalias, Dr. Diana Njai looking very divine. Across from her to the left is Derek Williams, who worked at the festival. And then you have a young lady on the runway in a beautiful, beautiful church hat, but she's not wearing it with a church dress. In the bottom left-hand corner. In the bottom right-hand corner is a festival visitor who the young people had documented another time. But Edmund and Chanel are going to tell you a little bit about their time at the 2013 Smithsonian Folklife Festival, which ran this summer from June 24th through July 7th. Edmund, talk.
Well, the event was very inspiring, and it was so much fun. It was like a living, breathing museum with everyone there from different areas and different walks of life. And we got to meet so many different people. For example, Jay Coleman, who was a tattoo artist, and literally people were walking up to him and getting tattoos done on site, and we were documenting it and interviewing him and finding out more about what he does and tattooing in the African American culture specifically. So that was fun. And another person that we got to speak to was Katrina Davis.
Chanel is going to talk a bit about her participation from June 24th through July 7th of this year.
I happened to have a ball at the festival because I got to meet a bunch of inspiring designers and learn their stories behind their art. Particularly Yamaya Jones, who's originally from Philadelphia. I enjoyed her the tie-dye and batik performances and workshops that she put on. I also learned how to wrap certain fabrics because I helped her backstage. And then also Marvin Sin, who resides in North Carolina right now. He is a leather artisan who showed me how to actually carve into leather, and that was a new technique that I got to pick up.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now we're going to talk about presenting. We've shown you how we identify style and style exemplars and artisans of style, how we document them. Now we're showing them how we share them back to the community in presentations. Okay, what's very important when we present artisans is to demonstrate their technique. Here you have Alicia Holloway, an artisan of style and innovator of the fishbone braid technique, demonstrating on participant Colette Wilson at the Dwyer Cultural Center in Harlem. We collaborate. When I say we, Mind Builders Creative Arts Center, in addition to the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage, we collaborate with Community Works, a public arts and education program in New York City, to provide presentations. Community Works is our audience developer. So Community Works provides audiences of high school students, college students, and middle school students. Alicia Holloway did not develop the fishbone braid technique. She innovated it, made it easier, and made it smarter looking, is known as the best fishbone braider in New York City. Another way that we present, artisans that we present are jewelry makers such as Sandy Baker. Edmund Asante was one of the young interns who interviewed Sandy, so he's going to speak to you a little bit more about her.
Well, we had the pleasure of interviewing Sandy Baker and were able to present her. She's an artisan of style. She's a jewelry maker and a silversmith. Over here in the top left, you see she's setting up her jewelry at the Dwyer Cultural Center in Harlem during one of our presentations. And to the bottom left, you see her posing with some of the audience participants, as well as the man in the photo who is Nice, a stylist based in Harlem, New York. And she's posing there with her signature famous butterfly glasses. And to the right, you see one of her creations that was inspired by spinner rims, actually, because she says that with her art and her jewelry pieces, she's inspired by the everyday.
Yes, Sandy also has necklaces that she said were inspired by a child blowing bubbles, things of that nature. Sandy is a true artist and artisan. Another artisan of style who we presented is Miss Sejanelle Lewis, a milliner. And you see her there with the audience members, as well as in the bottom left-hand corner, Madaha Kinsey Lamb, the executive director of Mind Builders, donning her custom-made hat as fashioned by Miss Sejanelle Lewis. And you see the audience also participating in this presentation. As I said, audience participation is absolutely necessary. You want to take what you have and connect it to your audience. You have to find a bridge. And one of the ways we found to bridge it is to have a Rock the Runway segment at the end of every presentation. So on the left photo, you see two audience participants rocking the runway at the Dwyer Cultural Center. And on the right-hand side, you see the interns of the folk culture program, along with audience members and their teachers participating in Rock the Runway. They're doing them up on the stage. So just as a recap, Style in Motion, just like the Will to Adorn, explores diversity in African American communities through the lens of dress and adornment. We showed you that we identify, document, and present traditions and tradition bearers. For the purposes of the Will to Adorn and Style in Motion, we are documenting the tradition of style, and the tradition bearers are the artisans of style and the style exemplars. And how are we exploring diversity in African American communities? How are we exploring diversity, and what have we discovered about African American communities? We've learned vocabulary words to help us put this all together. Communities of style. Evan is going to tell us what that is.
A community of style is defined as a group of people who share similar style sensibilities.
A group of people with similar style sensibilities. Communities of style. Here you have an old school or Harlem Sharp gentleman. He is wearing powder pink from head to toe, from his pink bowler hat until his powder pink gaiters, alligator shoes. Chanel is going to tell you how you determine a community of style.
To determine your community of style, you would ask yourself 4 simple questions. And those questions would be, who are you dressing for? Who are you dressing to be a part of? What's your crowd? And what's your crowd's dress code?
Exactly. In order to determine your community of style or community of styles, plural, because we ordinarily belong to more than one community of style, you want to ask, who are you dressing for? Now, if someone asks us, we usually say, I'm dressing for myself, which is very true. However, who you dress for, say, on a Friday evening when you may go to a friend's party, may be different than who you're dressing for on Saturday when you go to temple or Sunday when you go to church. You're still dressing for yourself when you go to temple and when you go to church. You're dressing for different communities. So in order to understand that, you say to yourself, okay, well, what's my crowd's dress code? And who is my crowd? And that's how you're able to help determine who your communities of style are. We've learned what a community of style is. Now we have another vocabulary term for you.
That term is cultural markers, which is defined as things that identify you as being of a certain group. Things that identify you as being of a certain group.
Exactly. Within the community of style, you're going to find cultural markers that help you identify them of being in a certain group. Here you see hip-hop as the example. The cultural markers in hip-hop. Audience, feel free to type in the answer to this question. What things do you see on the bodies of these people or represented in these photographs identify the people as being of hip-hop?
Well, there's many different cultural markers that are visible in these photos. I'll start with the top one in the center with the 2 men posing with the boom boxes. Even the boom boxes themselves are a big symbol of the hip-hop culture. They are more representative of the old school hip-hop generation with the gold chain and the Kangol, which was a popular brand, the Kangol hats, the snapbacks, and the loud prints, the baggy fitted sweatshirt, and even just their posing. It's a lot of attitude. It's very bold, and it's very square and hard and tough, which is a few adjectives that are very symbolic of people who embody the hip hop culture, as well as their basketball shoes. On the top left corner, you see the Gumby that Ms. Jade had previously referenced, which was another trendy hip hop haircut style, and also his gold rope chain that he's wearing. To the bottom center, the Converses with the graffiti print on them, which is another big cultural marker, graffiti. To the bottom right, the woman wearing the camo print, which is also very popular. To the bottom left, there's the man who was rocking the runway on our show, the presentation that we did previously, and he has the Timberland boots on. He has the long baggy shirt, and also his posing is very hip-hop. And to the top right, these guys, as opposed to the guys to the left of them, who are very old-school hip-hop, this is more of the new school, new age style of hip-hop. These guys are more fitted in the way that they dress. You can see in the jeans, it's very fitted, like a skinny fit. And also skateboard shoes, in addition to basketball shoes, are becoming popular in that culture. But you still have the fitted caps and the posing that is traditional hip-hop style.
Yes, so it's wonderful to be able to share with the interns. I'm old school hip hop, as Edmund alluded to earlier, and they're more of the current generation of hip hop. So it's wonderful to be able to bridge that generation gap through a lifestyle, really, not just music, but through a lifestyle. Okay, so we learned about communities of style, cult and cultural markers. Now we have one more vocabulary term that you need to understand. Chanel's going to talk about that.
Visual vocabulary is combined images that provide a definition or idea. Again, a visual vocabulary is combined images that provide a definition or idea.
Okay, altogether, those cultural markers create a visual vocabulary. Now, the combined images here tell us that this is Rasta, the Rasta community of style. And I'm going to pass the microphone over to Chanel Christopher. She's Antiguan, so she's going to break it down for us about Rasta.
Okay, the visual vocabulary associated with the Rastafarian community is that of the colors. You'll see a lot of red, gold, and greens. Normally, the Rastafarians wear dreadlocks, but you don't necessarily have to have dreadlocks. You don't have to have dreadlocks because it's a Rastafarian is a lifestyle rather than a actual visual dress style. But they represent themselves with a line of Judah pin or a pendant, and the men and women normally cover their hair. Like, you can tell somebody is not of the Rasta community if their dreads are out, because it's normally they're just doing it for the style rather than the lifestyle.
And I knew she was going to sew that up for us about Rasta. So you learned about communities of style, you learned about cultural markers, and you learned what a visual vocabulary is. So, and I'm putting this out to the audience, we have the community of style of church folks. We're showing the style and style exemplars. How do you know that the people depicted in these photographs are church folks? How do you know that, audience? Edmund's going to help you out with that as well. Church folks.
Well, to start with the women, the hats are a dead giveaway. That's where the style really comes in with the flowers and the ruffles and the variation, even if you see at the bottom left corner, the different ways that the hats are styled or designed and the different silhouettes of them is really like where they show their flair. And you can see those women are wearing all white, which is typical of a communion Sunday. Yeah, communion Sunday. And they have skirts that go below the knee, the pantyhose, this very respectable, modest clothing. And the women in the center as well have the skirts that go below the knee. And also you can see the cross on the right-hand side, the man wearing the robe. He has the two crosses on the side, which is a key symbol of Christian culture and church culture. And the man at the top left with the sharp suit, which is his Sunday best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He broke down the community of style of church folks. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you have a double take here. We have a gentleman who is expressing two different communities of style. Who you dressing for? Who you dressing to be a part of? This is Richard Thomas. He's former regional director of the Lower Hudson Valley for New York's Governor David Paterson when David Paterson was the governor. And he's currently a city councilman for Mount Vernon. These photographs were taken about 12 hours apart. Well, maybe 16 hours apart. On the left-hand side, this is on a Friday evening, and on the right-hand side, this is on a Saturday afternoon. So Chanel is going to describe who she thinks this community of style represents on the left side.
On the left side, I believe he's more of a corporate sense because he has on the blazer, the suit jacket with the tie and the crisp button-down white shirt. And he looks very corporate, like he's coming from work.
Exactly. And on the right-hand side, Edmund just came up with a wonderful determination of how to describe that community of style.
Well, on the right side, I would say it's a style that's very suburban. If you look, for example, like the shoes were something that definitely shows that it's something a bit different from your typical like Harlem, I guess like the Harlem swag, if you want to call it that. It's where like normally it's known for like in Harlem to be like a trendsetter and you want to have like the latest Nikes or latest sneakers or latest brand, this is not really a determinable brand. It looks like a generic like hiking boot, which it's not common as far as like the Harlem dress culture, and also like the style of the shorts. For example, if you look at the man who he's standing next to on the left, they basically have the same exact outfit, a t-shirt, shorts, shoes. However, you can see on the left, they're both casual outfits. However, on the left side, you can see there's a bit of coordination and an idea that's been put through. The white graphic tee, the black shorts, the white bucket hat to match, and the black shoes, the black and white shoes that throw the whole outfit together and kind of ends it. And whereas on the right side, it's still casual. However, you don't see the whole like stylistic intent that the guy on the left side is trying to put through in the way he's dressing.
So, community of style. Who are you dressing for? Who are you dressing to be a part of? On the left hand, dressing to be a part of corporate America. On the right hand, I'm dressing to be a part of the suburbs on a Saturday afternoon. So, questions for the audience. Why do we do what we do? Who are you dressing for? Who are you dressing to be a part of? What's your crowd? And what's your crowd's dress code? So, audience, feel free to join in with the questions.
That's great. And while we're waiting for our audience to share their thoughts there in the chat box, maybe we can take a moment and actually direct one or two of the questions from the audience to all of you.
Okay.
And I see one here from Diane in San Antonio, wondering, for the Mind Builders interns, how has your participation impacted your educational and career plans?
Well, my participation with the Will to Adorn program or the participation with Mind Builders is?
Mind Builders more specifically, but then Will to Adorn in general as well, please.
Okay. Well, my participation with Mind Builders has helped me to actually, the people at Mind Builders are the ones who have uncovered my talent. I personally didn't know that I was a designer or an artisan of style until I got to Mind Builders. I just know that I liked creating things, and so from there, they have just been so supportive, and that's what keeps me at Mind Builders and pursuing actually what I want to do, because it is in me. And as far as being a part of the Will to Adorn program, it's actually opened me up to other cultures and other like textiles and things like that that I would mind using in my craft.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
And I see a few answers have popped into the chat here related to the questions that we fielded to our participants.
I also would like to give Edmund a chance to respond. I see that you added something to the chat box too. Would you like to elaborate on your comments, Edmund?
Sure.
Hi. My answer to that question, well, the way that the Mind Builders in general, I started Mind Builders when I was in the 7th grade, when I wasn't even thinking about necessarily what I would be pursuing as a career as an adult, as much as just getting into high school. So this program has been very key to my own development, and I learned to hone in on different talents and skills and passions that I had that I kind of either took for granted or never really thought to be important. For example, like I knew I had a love for history, and I also grew to be very fixated on the idea of style and dress, because you're sitting there with a bunch of kids in middle school, and then it's like, oh, this person is best dressed and this person has style, and then I'm just like, why? Like, I don't understand what makes it so important, or what's relative or what's comparative to say who is best dressed or what is style and what's good style, what's bad style, if there is bad style. So being in this program, I got to explore all those ideas and ask all those questions and get the answers for them. And I learned that I really had a great passion for this kind of thing. And also, I like the way that people represent themselves and express ideas and messages through style, because throughout history, some of the most important messages have been put at the forefront through dress. So I learned that I wanted to be a part of that kind of implementation of style, and I learned that I would love to do like marketing and creative branding with fashion. And the people at Mind Builders, from the staff to even Miss Jade and Madaha Kinsey Lamb, were key in telling me to go forward with that, and if I have that idea, to push through with it, because I came from a community where that may not be seen as the professional, the idea of a good job or a good money-making job. And we learned that the good job is the job that's good for you, not necessarily the one that's good in the society that we're a part of. And being in the Will to Adorn, I learned, we sat there with a bunch of people who followed that exact mantra and did what was right for them. And you could see how, one, they were completely happy with themselves, and they may not necessarily be rich, but they were rich in ways that money couldn't buy it. Like, they had everything that they needed just by doing what it was that they loved. And I realized that that's what I wanted for myself, and it was very much like an affirmative experience that taught me that, yeah, I'm going in the right direction. So all of this has been very motivational for me.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes. Are we still live?
We are indeed, yeah. And I'm just taking a look at some of the comments here that have come in from participants. I see Sherry Williams in Chicago highlighting that I dress intentionally to express African pride. And Betty in Arlington adding, for the folklorists among us, there is definitely a style at the annual American Folklore Society meetings.
Absolutely. That's where people show off with their adornment at the American Folklore Society. They show off everything they bought in conferences since the year before.
Or in the last 40 years, depending.
Absolutely.
But there's definitely a style.
For sure.
Yes, yes. Are there any more questions?
Oh, I see. Ernest Williams has a great description there of your different style for according to the day of the week. That's great.
Ernest Williams, we have different style communities that we dress for, i.e. wilderness class on Mondays with hikers, fleece, pullovers, backpacks, waterproof jackets, and on Thursdays for debate. Our style community is more studious: jeans, leggings, sweaters, mops, or ballet flats, blazers, button-down shirts, etc. And on weekends, it's more casuals. Yes, Ernest Williams. Shout out to Ernest Williams. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I also think it's interesting. This is Sally again, looking at, I live outside of Washington, D.C. I live in a pretty rural area, and I always have fun looking at what people dress like where I live in the country, especially in wintertime, how you dress to keep warm in the winter versus when I come into Washington, D.C., how people are dressed in D.C. for the wintertime. They still have to look cool, and they still have their, always black jackets and boots and things. But it's fun to watch those differences. I have to say, working on this project has made me always watch what people are wearing, no matter where and when I am.
Yes, and Sally and I grew up about 30 minutes away from each other in Pennsylvania. We even lived a block away from each other, but we didn't know each other until about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Being in New York City, though, style is a whole nother level of existence. In Pennsylvania, you just throw on what you throw on and go to the corner store in the morning if you have to. Not in New York City. In New York City, you leave the house camera ready. At the very least, you put on sunglasses and lip gloss at the minimum. That's how you have to pull it together. Those words, pull it together. And you pull it together by wearing sunglasses and lip gloss. And with sunglasses and lip gloss, you can get away with anything. That's what I've learned from my New York sisters. Absolutely.
I love
and that's regardless of race or ethnicity. It's a New York thing.
I love the idea of camera-ready style. And I wanted to hear from Lavisa, who I think is one about West Coast style. Any observations that you can type in our chat room? And anyone from other parts of the country?
And as Louisa hopefully will be joining us here through the chat box, I'd like to give her a special notice. She's our site partner in San Francisco. She's running the Girls Behind the Lens program at the Museum of the African Diaspora and doing really just fantastic work out there. So thank you again for joining us, Louisa. And thanks also to Carolyn Thomas, who's joining us today. And thanks to all of our AS220 youth. We'll be hearing from them later. And Jenna Bonastali at Kid Smart in New Orleans. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yes, and Camila Bryce Laporte, who's here from, who's right here in the studio with us from Washington, D.C. area.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, it looks like we are actually at the point where we'll need to wrap up this session for now, but I just want to say a big thank you, Jade, to you and your guest speakers who joined us today. Really a wonderful session, and I'm actually going to pull up the schedule here for our upcoming sessions, and we do hope that everyone will stick around. We'll be back with you in just a few minutes, but once again, thank you so much, Jade.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.